Welcome to What's Next with Mattel Creations. I'm Jess Kirkman, this is Ethan Wood, and we are here with Shantell Martin today.
Cool.
Thanks for coming.
Lovely
we're at
to be
VCon, and we're talking to thought leaders and artists, and Shantell is one of our previous collaborators and someone we stay close with.
Yep, and you're hard to sum up, right? Because you are an artist, a public speaker, an intuitive philosopher, cultural facilitator, curator, choreographer, songwriter, performer, and more. After talking with you can kind of sum that up as a creative, right? At your heart, you're a creative, and this is one of the most enjoyable parts about some of the dialogues that we've had is the diversity and range of how you express your creativity. And we're going to dive into that in a little bit, but you've done fashion collaborations with celebrities, adjunct professor positions at MIT, NYU, and Columbia, choreographed a ballet, which we'll get to in a bit because that was awesome. Your work constantly evolves, and in talking to you, that comes through in all this conversation. So I'm very excited for us to have this conversation.
Yeah, so thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a lovely summer day here in LA.
So, Shantell, your work kind of covers a lot about identity and connection and expression. What inspired you to delve into those topics in particular?
You know, as you were just saying, you know, I'm working in a lot of different mediums and a lot of different industries, and I think being a creative person, you have the biggest box of freedom of creation. And I think that is a permission which I like to kind of intertwine within my work. And for myself, you know, being an artist is about self-exploration, but if you can do that in a way where you give others permission, I'm using a very simple tool, a pen, a marker, something that we all have access to. And through that, I get to explore and find out my way in life. But because I'm using something that's so accessible, perhaps that inspires or gives others permission to think about their own identity, their own way in life, through this very practical means.
I love that.
That's awesome. You know, you live in LA now, right? Your studio is here, but you haven't lived here forever, and you've lived in both London and in Tokyo. How have those experiences influenced your work?
Yeah. So I'm from London. I lived in Tokyo for many years, New York for many years, and LA for less years. And I think, you know, each place has shaped me as an individual, but also the environments had an effect on me and my work. And, you know, it's interesting to know which one comes first, because I think you are a different person in these different chapters in your life, and then also the environment has an influence on you. You know, when I was growing up in London, I didn't really have a lot of agency about my life, my career, the future. So I was a little bit more angry and used art as a way of getting that out. Then I moved to Japan in this place that was completely new. And I got to really find time to spend with myself and start to ask questions of myself. So my work there is more reflective, it's more internal. But also in Japan, I started doing visuals in clubs to DJs, dancers, musicians. So it was very internal, but there's that externalness, that collaborativeness of it. And then coming to New York, where things are just bigger and bolder than almost anywhere else, the work, now that it had that confidence of all that time of reflection in Japan, started to grow in scale. And so if you look at some of the works I did in New York, you know, you've got Times Square, Lincoln Center, Governor's Island, you know, etc. You know, those are works that really took in the experience and histories of London and of Japan and, you know, made it larger than life. Now this LA chapter, there's a lot of sunshine, a lot of blue skies, and I'm also almost going back to that reflective part, that reflective space of why am I here? What is the point of being an artist? What does it all mean? But now I'm really taking a seat back and thinking about what I want for the future, what the legacy of my work is, you know, what I'm trying to say and how I encourage others, again, once more, to have a permission and to contribute or join in this journey that I'm having.
It's an awesome evolution journey. You know, when I think about your artwork a lot now, a lot of it is performative and kinetic, and I'm curious, like, when you talk about your time in Japan, was that when it started becoming more about the performance and the experience, or was that at a different chapter?
So when I was in Japan, I mentioned a little bit, you know, I was a VJ doing live visuals, DJs, dancers, musicians, and I would be drawing, and those drawings would be projected on these giant screens. And, I think there was something really magical about that. When you draw live, you don't have time to think, plan, hesitate, or most importantly, you don't have time to be anyone else but yourself. And so that really found the core of my practice as an artist, and a lot of people will say, well, how do you find your style? How do you find your style? And I say it's already in there, but you need to extract it out. And you can extract it out through working live, through taking time out of the equation. Sometimes when you have too much time to think about things, then you have too much time to hesitate or be insecure or wonder what someone else might do.
Yeah.
And so, that moment in Japan of working live in the clubs, in the visual, really helped me extract that visual fingerprint and identity. And I think that's something, I just spoke about what I'm doing here in LA, but I think that practice has come full circle in LA. And now I'm doing a lot of these, for lack of a better word, spoken word live performance pieces where the audience gives me words, and with those words I create and compose a live spoken word piece with music. But I see that as drawing with words. There is still that interaction from the audience. There's still that moment of working live and trusting that whatever you say and wherever the evening takes you, it's because you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And speaking of spoken word and live art pieces, right under us right now is an Uno tournament, and one of the things we've done together is your amazing Uno deck, which everyone should get on MattelCreations.com. We're super, super proud of that collab. I'm going to have you sign that in a minute too. But you're going to be doing a live art piece down there. We actually have a large human-size Uno card. So we hope everyone comes and watches that. But which card did you pick today? And are you going to be taking words from the audience today too?
So today I chose the number 8 card. And just as, you have the magic 8 ball. And, I feel like 8 is very lucky in many ways. So I wanted to wish myself and everyone here lots of luck and lots of magic. And so we chose a number 8 card. And I think there's just something nice about witnessing art happen in real time. We're here today at VCon. You're seeing lots of people play with these different interactions and getting free foods and snacks. But I think if we can provide this little moment of people seeing something live and participating or witnessing that moment, that's magical.
We got to see you do that when we were at Art Basel together.
Yeah.
And you just described finding your style and being so in the moment, and you were taking words from adults, from kids, and creating this beautiful experience. So I just love, it's amazing to watch what you're saying come to life in that space. So it was just really cool. I'm glad we get to see you do it again.
Miami was so much fun, and we had free cards there, a nice crowd of people. And I think even in that, people were out there for, Miami Art Week, Art Basel. And in that week, they didn't really see a lot of art happening live or be even able to participate in it. And I think, that moment that we gave them of kind of the space that Mattel Creations created there was really beautiful, really creative, gave people a moment and a space for play and interaction.
Oh, love to hear that. That's an amazing way to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I love the communication element in some of your artwork. And when we went out to lunch, you told me about this one time in which you worked on your ballet. And the thing that I found most interesting was not being trained in ballet, how you communicated to the dancers to actually choreograph a ballet. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So it's interesting. When I say I choreographed a ballet, people's first reaction is, oh, you're a dancer. And I say, no. They say, oh, you're a choreographer. And I'm like, well, I am now. And it's interesting, this world of ballet has pulled me in. I've worked with the New York City Ballet, choreographed for the Boston Ballet. Next year, I will choreograph for the Los Angeles Ballet, LAB. And, when I first got asked to choreograph for the Boston Ballet, I thought this is the most scary and exciting opportunity that's ever come my way. To choreograph for one of the world's best ballets and have a world premiere at the Boston Opera House. And I remember showing up that first day to this room of, these professional athletes, these professional ballet dancers, and trying to think about how I would communicate and collaborate with these dancers. And so what I actually did with them for the first few days was not dance at all. We did drawing workshops.
Cool.
So I told them, kind of about my story, where I came from, showed them some of my work, and then I put pens and paper in their hands and took them through a series of workshops, individually, collaboratively, in pairs, in groups, with time, without time. And, that was really fun, just to see the lines that they would make and the marks that they would make. And after, a couple of days, we moved on to drawing workshops, but I took the pens away. And then when they started to make lines in space, they were like, oh, we are drawing, but we are also dancing. And then that was our common language. That's the common language of movement, of dancing, of lines. And it was really beautiful to kind of in a very tangible and practical way show them that there is this common language that we have.
I love that. I love hearing you talk about art in so many different ways. You talk about it as therapy, you talk about it as communication, you talk about it as expression. It embodies all the things we talked about earlier, in which you're a choreographer, you're an artist, you're creative, right? And you're using art to be introspective, external. It's amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about your new conversation series called What's the Point?
Yeah.
What inspired you to launch that project?
So very recently I started a project that has been on my list of things to do forever. And it was to start a podcast series. Well, actually, originally it was a book idea. And then that evolved into a podcast series. But, personally, to be a little bit vulnerable, I'm having a moment, and you could call it a midlife crisis or something, but an existential crisis of not knowing why I'm making, why I'm an artist, what the whole point of it is. You go through life as an artist, and for some of us that is a huge struggle. And then when you have some successes in that and you tick off all your boxes and you start to look at what's next, you also start to question why you did it all in the first place. And so when I feel like that and I have these existential crises, I've in the past always called friends, fellow artists, and asked them, why do you make art? Who is it for? Why can't you do anything else? Like, what do you think the purpose of this is? And in those moments, it's always helped me. And so I see that there is value in that with perhaps others. And so I started this podcast series. We have, I think, almost 15 episodes out, speaking to a spectrum of artists from different stages and successes in their career. And it's been so inspiring and re-inspiring, and has almost like within me kind of reignited that younger Shantell that, really wanted to be an artist and knew that this is what she wanted to do and this is why she wanted to do it. And that's been inspired and sparked by these conversations. And so, the podcast series isn't just for artists. I think it's for all of us out there who are creative, that are trying to find our way in life, that want to hear about people's journeys and struggles and triumphs and challenges. And so, please give it a listen sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I get to ask the fun question of, if you were on a desert island and you could only bring one art supply, what would it be?
One art supply, it would probably be paper. You could probably make paper, but I wouldn't have time to figure out how to do it. But, I feel like if you're on a desert island, there's so many things to draw with. So it'd be nice to have something instantaneously that I could make marks on.
Love that.
So when you talk about your journey, what's the point? Are you searching for like the ultimate answer, or are you searching for the answer in the moment? Because I'm sure that answer switches and changes depending on the day.
When I receive these answers from different people, I think there's fragments within all of those different people, within all of those different answers that resonate with myself. And I think that's what I'm looking for, those fragments, those pieces, through the reflection of others and through those fractions of things that I relate to, reignite and re-spark passion within myself, but at the same time get to have these kind of deep and sometimes not so deep conversations and hear that spectrum and that breadth of creativity. And I think, just like Mattel Creations, you're creating such a spectrum of different types of toys, different ways of playing, and I think when you put those all together in a series, you get such a world of options and choices and perspectives, and there's something really beautiful about that.
It's honestly the best part of the job, right? It's because we get to work with so many different creatives. It's similar to what you're talking about is like every different creative has a different way of talking, and you have to find a common language. And they have different nuggets that reflect back on your story. And then conversely, Mattel itself is such a creative organization that we have so many artists within our. I mean, it's most people, if you haven't visited there, you don't know. There's illustrators and painters and people that sew hair and sew goods and machinists and sculptors. It's truly a creative place, right? And it's that dialogue and that creation process that I think is the thing that keeps us coming back.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy touring the design center?
I would say be careful. I might quit my job at Shantell the artist and come and work for Mattel, you know. It was so inspiring walking through Mattel and having a tour there. You know, I, as a kid, you know, collected all sorts of toys, played with wrestlers, you know, cars and all sorts of other toys. And so it was just really inspiring for my little Shantell self to walk through there and be like, wow, like this is anyone's dream job, you know, to be surrounded by those toys and know that children will grow up remembering these things forever. Because, you know, we all remember all the toys that we had as kids. And they make such an impactful, meaningful impression on people as children.
It's really cool. Mattel Creations is an awesome place within the organization because we get to take those nostalgic toys as a kid and make collectibles for the adult, but it taps into their nostalgia. It's fun, but people are displaying them. And even your Uno deck, I have it displayed. You know, it's hard to sometimes play with it, but speaking of play and the connection to Mattel, what was in your toy box growing up? What did you play with?
Yeah, well, I mentioned some of them. I definitely had things like wrestlers, Ghostbuster figures. You can tell I was a bit of a tomboy growing up. All sorts of things like that. And then I went through like a Cubic stage where it was like more, I don't want to play with my toys. I want them on the shelf looking good. You know, all of those. So fun.
Yeah. And have you gotten to play your Uno deck with your friends and family?
I have played this with multiple different friends, multiple different families. There's been some arguments. There's been some tears.
Do you have any house rules that you instill?
I usually just say who has the loudest voice here and then just kind of go along with their house rules. But it is a game that people take very seriously.
Yes.
So it's nice to have art and lines on it to kind of distract from people's seriousness with the game. Because it is playful. And when I say people get very serious with this, I mean that in a playful way. But, you know, people do take it seriously. They want to win, you know. And so I love that about this game. It encourages people to be competitive but collaborative at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's the magic of Uno as one of our brands. You know, a lot of our designer toys aren't necessarily played with, right? They're for display, and they're pieces of artwork, that's true, and where I think Uno and other games offer the ability to engage with the art, and I think that's very, very compelling. I've seen people play with this deck, and not only are they competitive, and yes, they want to win, but you're seeing them actually reflect upon the cards
they're looking at
as
each
they're
card.
doing, which is really magical.
There's a lot of discovery in your deck. It's really cool. It's like flipping through a picture book of all your illustrations.
Yeah, I love it. A friend messaged me last night and was like, oh, you know, my family, we played with your deck last night and we realized, oh, some of the cards fit together. And I was like, oh, nice. You know, like when people really get to just spend time with them as well, you know, it's fun.
Yeah. Do you have a pen on you today?
We don't have. I do.
Oh, we're going to have you sign.
This one's too big.
Just right. There we go. And while you're signing your deck, in the spirit of the What's Next with Mattel Creations, I think we kind of have to ask, what's next for Shantell Martin?
So I'm not sure if I can speak about these things, but I will. And then, you know, we can rewind them. But I will be spending a lot of the fall in New York. And Times Square have given me a whole block to create a meditation path.
Wow.
So I will create a drawing in the form of a meditation path that people can walk and reflect, and there'll be an audio guide that takes them through that. And the idea with that is that there's going to be a moment of reflection in one of the most chaotic places in the world.
Yeah.
So that will be out. For Armory Week in New York, I'm taking over the Rockefeller Plaza. They have these vitrines, I think over 15 vitrines around the different buildings, 10 Rock, 35 Rock, 45 Rock. And so there'll be an exhibition that I'm creating through all of those vitrines. It will also be my birthday, so I'll be celebrating my birthday. And And then lastly, I have a bike coming out with Brompton Bikes.
Cool.
And Brompton is one of the oldest world's fold-up bike companies. I think next year they turn 15.
That's incredible. And if you're not following Shantell on Instagram or wherever else you are constantly, it is not a repeat process. Every time you post something, it's something different. I know we've been talking about the ballet and a record and an installation. And so you're giving us an excuse to go to New York. I think we're going to have to go to
meditate
New York
in Times Square.
Meditate in Times Square.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's like a New York takeover. You know, I left New York, but New York is saying come back and like have this moment. So I'm excited for this, this fall New York takeover.
That's awesome. Thank you for coming here today and being at VCon with us and for this new podcast series.
Yeah, I'm excited to see your performance downstairs. It's going to be amazing.
Cool, thank you. Well, I'll sign this and then we'll pop down and do some drawing.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're going to watch you draw live, so do that large scale. And we're just excited for what the future holds with Shantell. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.